Hey folks, hope all of you are doing great. Welcome back to Dead Silence Archives. Today we have a fresh, real incident from England for you all. This is not a story that makes headlines. It's not something officials like to discuss. And it's definitely not something the locals enjoy remembering, because whatever lives in this place doesn't like attention. My name is Thomas Keane. I'm 37 years old. I was born and raised near Cannock Chase in Staffordshire, England. And for years I've tried to forget what followed me out of those woods. Cannock Chase looks harmless during the day. That's how it fools people. Tall pine trees, dirt paths, dog walkers, cyclists, families taking photos. But if you grow up here, you're taught something very early. You're taught where not to go. There are parts of the forest locals avoid without ever explaining why. No signs, no fences, just quiet agreement. As kids, we were warned in half-jokes and serious tones mixed together. Don't follow voices. Don't trust children you don't recognize. And if you see them standing still between the trees, no matter what they say, you keep walking. I didn't listen. It started in September 2014. At the time, I was working as a delivery driver, covering late routes. One evening, just after sunset, my van broke down near Brockton Road, right where the forest thickens. Mobile signal was weak, and help was going to take at least 40 minutes. The woods were unusually quiet. No birds, no wind. Even the leaves felt frozen. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. They were light, fast, like a child running but trying not to be heard. I turned around expecting to see some local kid messing about. Instead, I saw a boy standing just inside the tree line. He looked about 10 years old, pale skin, blonde hair cut too neatly. He was wearing a school uniform, gray trousers, white shirt, dark jumper, completely wrong for the time of day. He wasn't breathing hard. He wasn't scared. He was just waiting. He spoke before I could. "Can you help me?" he asked. "I'm lost." Something about his voice didn't match his face. It sounded older, flat, almost rehearsed. I stepped closer without realizing it. My body felt heavy, like I was walking through water. I asked him where his parents were. That's when he looked up at me properly. His eyes were completely black, not dark brown, not shadowed. Black, no whites, no pupils, just solid black eyes reflecting nothing. My stomach dropped. My heart slammed so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Then I noticed something worse. He wasn't alone. A girl stepped out beside him. Same age, same uniform, same expressionless face, same eyes. She smiled, not a happy smile, not a child's smile, a practiced one. "Please," she said, "we need to go home." The forest went dead silent. No insects, no distant traffic, nothing. I remember thinking, if I scream, no sound will come out. Then my van alarm went off. The sudden noise snapped whatever hold they had on me. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. When I looked back at the trees, they were gone. No footsteps, no movement. No broken branches, just empty woods. I didn't wait for the mechanic. I drove that van until the engine finally died for good. That night, I didn't sleep. At 2:11 a.m., I heard tapping on my bedroom window. Slow, deliberate. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps again. I live on the 2nd floor. When I forced myself to look, there was nothing outside. But my dog, who never growled at anything, was shaking, teeth bared, staring at the glass. The tapping stopped. Every night after that, the same time. 2:11 a.m. Lights flickered. Doors unlocked themselves. I would find muddy footprints leading nowhere. My dreams changed. I dreamt of standing in the woods, surrounded by children watching me silently. When I woke up, my feet were dirty. Pine needles were in my bed. I had no memory of leaving the house. I finally asked around. Most people shut down immediately. Changed the subject. One old man in a pub near Hednesford stared at his drink for a long time before whispering something I still hear in my head. "They don't haunt the forest," he said. "They leave it." That's when I realized something terrifying. I hadn't seen ghosts. I had been seen. I tried to convince myself it was stress. That's what everyone says when something doesn't fit into logic. Stress, exhaustion, overwork. But stress doesn't leave muddy footprints in locked houses. Stress doesn't tap on second-floor windows at the exact same minute every night. I stopped checking the time after a week. I didn't need to. My body knew when 2:11 a.m. was coming. My chest would tighten. My mouth would go dry. My dog would start whining 10 minutes before it happened, pacing the room, nails scraping against the floor like it wanted to dig its way out of the house. The tapping never changed. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Always from the same corner of the glass. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom. I tried the sofa, then the spare room. It followed. Wherever I slept, the tapping found me. When I covered the windows, the sound moved to the walls. When I turned on all the lights, it moved to the ceiling. That's when I began hearing footsteps inside the house. Bare feet. Light. Careful. Like someone learning the layout. One night, I forced myself to open the bedroom door after the tapping stopped. The hallway was dark, but I could smell damp earth, wet leaves, pine, the exact smell of Cannock Chase after rain. There were footprints on the carpet, small ones, children's footprints. They stopped right outside my door. I didn't go to work the next day, or the day after that. I sat in my kitchen drinking cold tea and watching the doorway, jumping at every sound. My reflection in the microwave door didn't look like me anymore. My eyes were sunken. My skin had gone gray. I decided I needed proof. Something concrete. Something I could show someone so they'd believe me. So I set up cameras. One in the hallway, one in the living room, one facing the front door. The first night, nothing happened. The second night, the cameras glitched at 2:11 a.m. Every feed froze for exactly 1 minute and 12 seconds. The third night, I wish I'd never looked. At 2:11, the hallway camera turned on by itself. The footage showed the corridor stretching longer than it should have been, like the walls were breathing outward. Then, slowly, 2 figures stepped into view. The boy and the girl. They weren't walking. They were gliding. Their feet never touched the floor. They stopped directly outside my bedroom door and turned their heads toward the camera in perfect unison. And they smiled. Their mouths opened too wide. I slammed the laptop shut and vomited into the sink. When I looked back at the footage the next morning, the file was corrupted. All that remained was one still image. The boy staring straight into the lens. I noticed something I hadn't before. He was older. His face had changed, sharper, thinner, like he was growing, or remembering how. I finally went to the police. They listened politely. One officer tried not to smirk. Another suggested carbon monoxide poisoning. But when they came to my house and reviewed the camera setup, one of them, an older man, went quiet. "You grew up here, didn't you?" he asked. I nodded. He hesitated, then said, "Some people don't see them. Some people do. And once you do, it doesn't stop." That was the first time anyone in authority didn't deny it. That same night, the knocking changed. It wasn't at the window. It was at my front door. Slow, firm, adult. I checked the camera feed. The children were standing on my doorstep. They were closer now, taller. Their uniforms looked cleaner than they should have been, like they weren't affected by weather or time. The boy lifted his head and spoke without moving his mouth. "We followed you home," he said. The door handle turned. I screamed. I prayed. I backed away until my shoulders hit the wall, and then Nothing. The feed cut out. The knocking stopped. When I opened the door an hour later, there were no footprints. Just a single pine needle placed perfectly in the center of my doormat. I knew then that this wasn't random. They weren't curious. They were patient, and they were learning. The next day, I drove back to Cannock Chase. I don't know why. Maybe part of me believed if I faced it, it would end. The forest looked normal, birds chirping, sunlight through trees, families walking dogs. But when I stepped off the path, the air changed. It felt heavier. I heard children laughing deeper in the woods. I followed the sound. That was my mistake. The trees closed in around me. The laughter stopped. I found myself standing in a clearing I had never seen before, despite knowing these woods my entire life. And in the center of that clearing were dozens of children, all standing perfectly still, all watching me, all with black eyes. The boy from before stepped forward. "You're not supposed to come back alone," he said. And that's when I realized something far worse than fear. They weren't pretending to be children anymore. They were wearing them. I don't remember walking back to my car. That's the part that terrifies me the most. One moment I was standing in that clearing, surrounded by children who weren't children. And the next moment I was sitting behind the steering wheel with the engine running and my hands gripping it so hard my fingers had gone numb. The clock on the dashboard read 4:46 p.m. I checked my phone. I had entered the forest at 2:03 p.m. Almost 3 hours were gone. My clothes were damp, like I'd been kneeling on wet ground. There was dried mud on my knees and pine resin stuck to my palms. When I looked in the rearview mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. My eyes were bloodshot. My pupils looked wrong, too dark, too wide. As I drove away, I felt it. That sensation you get when someone is standing behind you. I didn't look back. That night, the house felt different. Not active, not loud, occupied. The air was warmer, heavier, like too many people breathing in a small space. My dog refused to enter the living room and pressed himself against the front door, whining softly. When I turned on the lights, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. There were small handprints on the wall near the hallway. Not smeared, not dirty, pressed, as if someone had leaned forward and placed both palms flat against the paint. They were too high up to belong to a child. I wiped them away, my hands shaking, but the feeling didn't leave. Every sound in the house felt deliberate now. The fridge hummed, the ticking clock. Even my own breathing felt too loud, like it was being listened to. At 2:11 a.m., there was no tapping. There was whispering. It came from inside the walls. Multiple voices, soft, overlapping, saying my name in broken pieces, not calling, practicing. I covered my ears and rocked back and forth on the bed, eyes squeezed shut, telling myself not to listen. That's when I felt the mattress sink beside me. I didn't move. I couldn't. Something cold brushed against my hand, small fingers, too many of them. I felt pressure on my chest, not enough to hurt, just enough to remind me I wasn't alone. A voice leaned close to my ear. "You came back," it said. I don't remember falling asleep. When I woke up, the sun was already high. My phone was on the floor, cracked. There was dirt under my fingernails and my shoes were missing. I found them later by the front door, covered in mud. That was the moment I understood something that made my blood run cold. They weren't just visiting me at night. They were taking me places. I called in sick again, then again. I stopped answering messages. I stopped leaving the house. I taped the windows shut. I locked every door and still checked them every hour. But it didn't matter. Locks don't mean anything when something doesn't use doors. The dreams came back stronger. I dreamed of standing in the forest while the children circled me, slowly, endlessly. With every turn, their faces changed. Older, thinner, wrong. Their smiles stretched wider, their eyes sank deeper, and always the same sentence: "Stay with us." One afternoon, I woke up on the floor of my living room. The TV was on static, the volume was turned all the way up, and written across the screen, scratched into the glass from the inside, was a message: "You saw us first." That's when I finally understood the truth. They didn't follow everyone. They followed witnesses, people who looked too long, people who noticed, people who didn't look away fast enough. Cannock Chase didn't create them, it hid them. And now, they knew where I lived. After I saw the words scratched into my television screen, "You saw us first," I didn't scream. That's what surprised me. I just stood there, staring at my own reflection, distorted in the broken glass, trying to understand how something could know me so well, trying to understand how something that didn't belong in this world could leave a message so personal. That was the night fear stopped being sharp. It became dull, constant, heavy, like something pressing down on me from the inside. The house no longer felt empty when the sounds stopped. Silence itself felt occupied. I could feel presence without movement, awareness without sound. Rooms felt crowded even when I was alone. The air was warm, stale, like too many people breathing in a closed space. I stopped sleeping in my bed. Then I stopped sleeping at all. Whenever I closed my eyes, I saw the clearing again, the children standing in a perfect circle, their faces changing, older, thinner, stretched wrong, like masks being peeled back layer by layer. And behind them, something tall, something that didn't bother pretending. I began losing time. Entire chunks of the day would disappear. I'd sit down at the kitchen table, blink, and suddenly it would be dark outside. Sometimes I'd find myself standing in rooms with no memory of walking there. Once I woke up in the bathtub, fully clothed, with mud smeared along the porcelain like I'd been dragged. That's when I realized something crucial. They weren't just visiting me at night anymore. They were practicing with me. I tried to leave town, packed a bag, got into my car, drove for nearly an hour. But no matter which road I took, I ended up back near Cannock Chase. Same stretch of trees, same narrow road, same feeling of pressure behind my eyes. On the third attempt, my car stalled completely, and I heard laughter from the woods. Not playful, not loud, controlled. That was when I finally accepted that I couldn't face this alone. I contacted Michael Rowlands, an independent paranormal investigator based in Staffordshire. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told him about the children, the missing time, the message on the TV. There was a long pause on the line. Then he said, "I was hoping you wouldn't say that." When Michael arrived at my house, he stopped just inside the doorway. He didn't ask questions. He didn't even take his coat off. "They're already here," he said quietly. We set up equipment anyway, cameras, audio recorders, EMF meters. Not because we believed it would stop anything, but because we needed proof, something tangible, something human. At 2:11 a.m., everything activated at once. The temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath. The hallway camera showed movement, shadows darting back and forth at impossible speeds. The audio recorder filled with whispering, layered so thick it sounded like static. And then one voice cut through, clear, calm, adult. "He belongs to the woods." Michael's face drained of color. "That's not one of the children," he whispered. "That's what they answer to." The front door unlocked itself, slowly. No force, no struggle, just acceptance. The smell hit us first, wet soil, decay, pine resin. Heavy footsteps crossed the threshold. Each step felt like it landed inside my chest. I couldn't breathe properly. My vision blurred. A tall shadow passed the hallway doorway. Too tall to be human, too thin to be natural. The children stood behind it, perfectly still, like reflections waiting to move. Michael threw a line of salt across the floor and shouted something under his breath. The shadow recoiled slightly, not in pain, but annoyance, like we had delayed it, not harmed it. Then every device shut off at once. Total silence. The pressure lifted. The house felt empty for the first time in months. Michael packed up immediately. "You're not the target," he said as we stood outside. "You're the proof. You saw them first, so they used you to confirm they're still remembered." I asked him what they were. He shook his head. "Whatever they are, they don't die there. They're absorbed. The forest keeps what notices it too closely." I left the next morning. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't take photographs. I didn't say goodbye to the house. I just drove until the trees thinned and the air felt lighter. For a long time, nothing happened. No whispers, no dreams, no missing time. But Cannock Chase never fully let go. Even now, years later, there are nights when I wake up at 2:11 a.m. for no reason. No sound, no movement. Just the overwhelming sense that if I look toward the dark corner of the room, I'll see a child standing there, waiting. Because some places don't haunt houses. They mark people. And once you're marked, you don't belong entirely to yourself anymore. If you want to listen to more real stories like this, please subscribe to Dead Silence Archives. And if you have any suggestions, cases, or experiences you want us to explore, leave a comment below. Some forests don't want to be explored. They want to be remembered. And some memories remember you back